So our second artist this evening is Claire Sievers. And Claire and I came to St. Barnabas about the same time, about a year and a half ago. So we're sisters. Yeah. And Claire is a music educator. She officially retired about 7 years ago, but she's been called back to teach orchestra in the Mesa school system many times in the past 7 years. And also about 7 years when she retired, she became more serious about her quilting. And so this is a quilt. This is the first quilt that she ever did that is a portrait. So be impressed. So Claire, I want to read the scripture that you included as a part of the quilt because it's a powerful complement to the gospel that we read. And it's scripture from Zechariah, and it reads, "Around the edges of the quilt, and they will look on him when they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son. And they will weep bitterly over him like the bitter weeping over a firstborn." And so you said in your artist statement that you did a lot of research before beginning, and when you found this scripture, it really ignited your imagination and led you to this image. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I first looked at some of the old master paintings from the Descent to the Cross, and I found myself, I kept looking at Mary. I kept saying, well, what's Mary doing down there at the bottom of the cross? And I got kind of very, very interested in that. And I knew I wanted to do a quilt, I knew I wanted to do a simple image, but doing a whole descent from the cross would have been very difficult. So I don't remember which order, but I liked Ron's statement about the golden thread between the New Testament and the Old Testament. And that verse just really hit me because of Mary's loss of her son. My husband and I had our first son pass away after heart surgery, so I identified to some extent with that. But I also couldn't find just the right picture, and I finally found this picture, and it was on a Czechoslovakian stamp, and they were you know how stamps, they honor people in history, and they honored this man, and I cannot say his name. It's a very long name, about this long. It starts with a V, and it's Czechoslovakian, and he painted like retables and in monasteries, and this was like in 1350. So I just found this little stamp. I just Googled, and I went, that is it. And I just loved the one little tear. I thought it went perfectly with the verse. And I just thought she was holding her adult Jesus in death like she held her baby Jesus. And so it just came together after that. So
I love how all of these histories are coming together, your own personal history, the history of Jesus' life, his birth, his mother, relationship with his mother at birth and in death, the artist, the history of the artist.
It really did just kind of all
come
coalesce
together
into one project. Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about the process of creating?
Well, basically I just took the picture and I blew it up, and then I went through my scraps of fabric and just found fabric that I liked. And like her gown, her headdress, and her dress, I think that's 5 different fabrics. I had bought this paisley blue and purple just because quilters do that. They buy stuff that's pretty. In fact, we buy too much of it usually. And I just started kind of putting stuff together, and then there's a material you can put on the back of the fabric. It's briefly, and then it stiffens it up. You can cut it out, and then it's like a Post-it note. So you put it on there, and then when it's all in place and you have it all correct, you iron it on, and then it stays there, but then you do the quilting around it to define it. So that's more or less how you do it.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So let's go ahead and move to questions. There's another.
Well, I
Quilter.
too am a quilter.
Oh,
I too am a quilter, and it is absolutely magnificent.
Oh.
It is, I think it just warms my heart. So many people don't realize that working with fabrics is an art form. And so thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, and it's just spectacular.
thank you.
I do have one question, though, because I used to sell sewing machines, so I'm curious as to whether this is hand-quilted or machine-quilted.
It's machine quilted.
Okay.
I do
Yay,
not
good
have
girl.
the patience for hand quilting. I don't think I have the eyes for hand quilting either.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I don't know if this is a fair question. I've never been near quilting in my life. Does that take an extremely long time to do that? It surely looks like it does.
Yeah, somehow I found out about this a little late in the process, and I think maybe I emailed Erica in December, or it was kind of late. And then I saw that it was due on January 31st, and I just sort of panicked. And I think I got it 2 weeks ago. So it is time consuming, but it's also kind of fun because like I said, I love colors, and I just loved figuring out what was going to be what. But I think I started it over Christmas break, if I remember, and it took about 2 months. And I had to tear stuff off a lot because, getting the skin tones was not easy. And I kept going back to the store. I mean, I had a good stash of skin tones, but I was looking just for the right one. But anyway, so a couple of months, and I work, so it was just here and there. I think I ditched school a couple times, actually, to finish it.
Do you think you will create some more portraits at some time with your quilting, now that you've tackled one?
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun. There's a lot of portraits that are made with, for instance, all blues, so the shading is all one color or all greens, or patterned fabric. So there's a lot you can do with portrait quilts. It's very interesting. So yeah, probably. Might take another class. I mean, I might take a class. Didn't take a class on this one, but.
Claire, thank you for sharing this with us. I'm a stitcher, and I'm curious about the stitching. Is that done on the inscription, the scripture? Is that done on the machine, or did you do
Yes.
that by hand?
Yeah.
Because I can't tell from where I'm sitting and looking at this whether it was printed or.
No,
Yeah.
I just took I found a font that I liked, and I printed it on paper, and I stitched over it and tore the paper away.
It worked perfectly.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Did you make any changes to the stamp that you saw, that you started with?
Not really. The colors are different, a little different. She was a blonde on the stamp, and so that's why I kept her blonde, but I told other people I really kept her blonde because I found some fabric that was just right. But I didn't change it too much. This was evidently a part of a much bigger scene, but I never could find that. But I didn't change it too much.
I find the juxtaposition of the faces keeps drawing me in. So I love it.
I was worried about that because that was exactly what the stamp did, but I thought, now can I reproduce that? But yeah, I like the closeness of their face.
The answer is yes.
Just for me to say, my favorite part is her hand. is her hand cradling, and just you said it, a little bit earlier, but for me, there's just that's the part that rips my heart out in the best way. So.
Well, thank you so much, Claire.
You're welcome.